I looked at the current bylaws, and in Article 3, it says the duties include examine the cause of tension, conflict, discrimination, and intolerance between various groups, provide recommendations to alleviate such conditions, practices, and attitudes, and foster mutual esteem, justice, equity, and dignity of every individual. I agree with this. If I was here, I would have voted for it. And what I'm concerned about is we as leaders have to set the tone. And frankly, over the last decade in politics, I'm sick and tired of people fighting, grandstanding, and failing to improve our communities when given the opportunity. And Nathan, I'm sure you've done an incredible job on this board. We don't always agree, but you've always allowed me to speak. You've always given me the credibility that my voters gave me as a right to represent them. And I've tried to follow that lead with all our colleagues, whether I agreed with them or not. And I look at this and I think, here's an incredible opportunity for this commission to really rise to the occasion. See, the part that is kind of upsetting to me is they're good people. I've talked to many of the people on that commission. They're great people. But I think that this is such a, and as you stated, Chair Fletcher, this is such a heated issue that sometimes people immediately say things that they don't mean, or they immediately think of the worst in people as opposed to the best. And you know, I made a career working across party lines in Sacramento, doing more bills with Democrats than all the other Republicans combined, because I thought at the end of the day, the people I serve are more important than who I am as an individual, and that my duty to them should supersede any minor short-term gains I get by saying something that hurts someone else needlessly. And so when I look at this, I want to challenge the people on that commission to rise above this and to show us the way. So if we just say, we're going to rubber stamp, and anytime there's conflict, instead of showing us resolution, we'll just purge that person. That's a problem for me, because I think that we're losing our way along that. And if Mr. Garcia is still on the line, I'd like to know what the vote was on the bylaw change before it came to us, because I don't have it in front of me, but it was a simple majority. And if he has it, I'd like to hear, because there's a lot of abstentions.
Yeah, let's hear from Mr. Garcia.
Yes, it was an overwhelming majority. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but I think there was, I believe there was a couple of abstentions and one opposition, but the rest, it was the majority. I think it's possible one of the staff may have the actual numbers.
Let me ask Mr. Strong if you know the numbers on this request.
I do. The vote to approve was 14 members voting yes, 8 members abstaining, and 1 member voting no.
Okay. Well, I'd like to give the commission an opportunity to fix this before we start making big bylaw changes. And you know, I get that you can have somebody who is trying to be problematic and is using that position to undermine the goals of the organization. But I also understand that something that this emotional, people can overreact and be upset. You see, I think that if we allow people to change the rules because somebody quotes a passage from the Bible, the Quran, or the Torah, we're going down the wrong road. There's a lot of people in my district. You heard one of the speakers who identified themselves in support of this. You've heard people in my district who identified on the other side. I walk a very tight line trying to ensure that everybody in my district is treated with respect. And I'd really love for this organization to make that job easier by being another beacon on the Hill, sending a signal of how we can all work to get along, because there's always going to be people who are deeply faithful, and there's always going to be people that have other views, whether they agree politically or another, but we have to live in this world together. We can't be fighting each other and saying we're going to cancel you because we disagree with you, or we're going to purge you because we disagree with you. I mean, when you look at this board and how it's changed, Chair Fletcher, you were in the minority, now you're in the majority, and yet you never lost track of what it feels like to be in the minority and that how your voice needs to be heard. What I'm worried is that we're going down the wrong road with this. And so I know it's hard work, but I'm asking for that hard work because I think that's what Leon Williams would have wanted. I think that's why it was named after him. So I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to send this back. Let me find it here so I have it right. To return the bylaws to the County Staff and Human Relations Committee for a review and require a 2/3 vote on the commission before it comes back for board approval. That way, you don't have a simple majority. You have an overwhelming majority. If you're going to purge somebody off that commission, it requires 2/3. The policy that creates that should be 2/3 too. And I would ask upon my colleagues to do it. And then on a separate note, I think part of the problem of this is, do we have any, can staff answer whether we have any required training to be on this commission?
We currently don't have required training, but we are considering that as a part of the strategic plan development and moving forward. So we would train on bylaws, we would train on Brown Act. Brown Act is actually the one training that they do get, everybody gets when they come onto the commission, but other than that, we don't.
So I'd like to amend into this too, that it requires the commissioners to go through training. You see, part of the problem with this is somebody abstained from a vote, and then they were asked and pressured into saying why they abstained. But in the bylaws, it says specifically, let me see here, I have it. A commissioner may abstain from voting on a matter. If a commissioner abstains from voting on a matter, the commissioner shall not be required to state the basis for the abstention. Yet, in the case, now, I don't think anybody said, you have to tell us, but because without the training, people feel that they're compelled. We have a vote where 8 people abstained. None of them were asked why they abstained, moving this forward. So if we're going to do this, we need to be adults, and we need to really set the bar high. And I'm willing to support it. Look, what the goal is that I said earlier, I absolutely support. So I would ask that we go back to the commission. I think that they can create a path, but I think with the 2/3, I'd feel more comfortable voting for it if we had that. So I'm asking for those 2 amendments.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. And I appreciate your comments greatly. The effort and spirit that we work here on a board, it's okay to disagree. And I think we do that, and we make our points, and we can make them passionately and forcefully, but still respect the integrity of each other and treat each other with that respect and continue to work forward on other items. You know, this is a difficult issue, and it's a difficult issue for the HRC. They were created to do really hard, difficult things. And a part of everything that we've dealt with in the past few months surrounding this, in my eyes, is how do we empower the HRC to fulfill their mission that we've outlined, understanding how hard and challenging and difficult it will be. And I think the HRC has overwhelmingly requested that we amend their bylaws to do that. These are the changes that they feel like they need, with 15 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 8 abstentions, but overwhelmingly requested that we make these changes to them. And so I'm reluctant to send it back to them and have them go through this entire episode again. I will note that it is a 2/3 vote for any censor or any removal or any of those types of items. It is a prospective item looking forward. So I'm reluctant to send it back to them and have them continue to drag through. I would like them to carry on with the mission they have in front of them. I would like them to move forward and carry on. But I do wholeheartedly agree with you on your second recommendation, that there needs to be required training for commissioners, not only on the bylaws, but on the bylaws, as you point out. If that had happened, perhaps the situation might not have occurred, around the rules of order, and I believe around the code of conduct. I think all 3 of those, in addition to the Brown Act training they already go through, would be appropriate, so that all the commissioners understand the bylaws, the rules of order, and the code of conduct. And so I'd be more than happy to accept that
Mr. Chair,
amendment.
if I may, I appreciate what you're saying. If I may, I'd also like to make sure that we're not asking them whether this is weed abatement, and while weeds are important, it's not the same nature. This is really important work. I'd like to have these meetings moving forward. Maybe we could amend this in to either have the audio or the visual of the meetings being kept for future reference so that people can see this. Because if this is really designed to teach people how to think about these issues and rise to the occasion, they should be open and easily accessible for the public, because I'm hoping moving forward, they set the tone for all of society. Yeah. Now, with that, there's one other issue, so I'd like to add that as an amendment, since we're going through that. And then one last item.
I have a question as you're adding all these amendments, because I just want to make sure, because I want to make sure that we're fair.
One's been turned down already.
No, I understand, but I want to make sure we're fair, because the Human Rights Commission is a very important commission, and I want to say thank you to the Human Relations Commission members for all the work that they've done, and I think that they have done exceptional work in the recommendations that they've made. But I want to make sure that we don't single them out from any other commissions that we have in the County of San Diego, because I think everybody should be working under the same guidance, right? Everybody should have codes of conduct. Everybody should be able to have bylaws. So today what we have before us is an issue specifically for the Human Rights Commission. So, but I want to make sure that if we are going to ask the Human Relations Commission to be public about and everything that they do is going to be, open and transparent, that we're going to ask every commission that we have in the County of San Diego to do the same, because they should not be excluded, or we shouldn't be singled out from any other commission. So whatever rules we're going to be agreeing to today have to be the same rules that we're going to apply to every commission that we have in the County of San Diego.
Madam Vice Chair, if I had a second, I would second that.
All right, I just want to make sure.
And then the last item I had is there was some confusion over moving forward whether it would be retroactive or not. I think this is a clean start. I think it should mention here that whether it's on record, audio or written record, that these are policies moving forward, that we're not retroactively trying to apply this. This is about a learning and growing opportunity. So those three amendments are the things that I'm asking for. One you have agreed to already, or at least the second hasn't, but you have. And I'm thinking that Nora might be a second on the other amendment.
So let me ask real quick, let me ask either Chair Nash or Mr. Garcia if you can comment on the prospective versus retroactive component of what we're doing here today.
Hi, yes, this is David Garcia. We did, the HRC did agree that this is moving forward. This is not retroactive. This is moving forward. And we want a clean slate where everybody knows how we are moving forward on our mission and our goals.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't need the amendment then. That works for me.
Let me ask quick, Mr. Strong, does HRC have the current capability to have their meetings be public and recorded to be posted?
Absolutely. We're actually planning to do that moving forward as a part of the strategic plan, putting it out there for the HRC. But we will be posting videos on the website as well as minutes moving forward.
Okay. And let me ask our CAO if we have the capability to do that for all boards and commissions.
It's going to be difficult. With Zoom, we have a visual from that, but when we go back to in-person, we don't have a way of having video. We could look into the audio portion of all meetings and we could post that, but I can't guarantee that we would be able to do the video piece. We certainly can post, and I think we do post agendas and meeting minutes, but we will make sure that we also keep an audio record and post that.
Let me ask the Vice Chair if that's okay.
That works for me, because we're also working at the state. We're also working at the state level to try to change some of the regulations so that we have more opportunities for folks to be able to have some tools like Zoom for future meetings. So I'm fine with it.
I'm going to get to my other colleagues. Go ahead.
Chair Fletcher, pardon. Since the application of these rules to other committees was not noticed that way, you'd have to just take it as guidance for that to come back as a program rather than do it here.
Okay. So before I go to my other colleagues, let me just clarify the motion that's on the table. The motion that's on the table is to approve the recommendations outlined in Agenda Item 9, with the addition of requiring training for commissioners around bylaws, rules of order, and code of conduct, and to have the HRC ensure that their meetings, audio and video, are public and accessible, and then directing the CAO to explore how we could do similar audio recordings with other boards and commissions and report back to the board at a future date. And is that second, or you're okay with all that? Okay. Let's go to Supervisor Desmond.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the people that serve on this commission. And I want to really thank Supervisor Anderson for your comments and for this board. I mean, even though we've had major differences on things, we still work together and vote 90% of the time or more, 5-0 on many of the issues. But this Human Relations Commission, I think is put together in my mind so that people learn to work with each other. And I think this is kind of what we're talking about here, and not to make light of it, but I think the fatal flaw in the Human Relations Commission is allowing humans to be on it. There's 31 people on this commission and the committee, and trying to get everybody to agree, or you're going to have a few people that are outliers with 31 people on there. So, I think the First Amendment protects freedom of speech and religion. And this is a protected right upheld by the Supreme Court. So whether you agree or disagree with anyone's comments, we don't want to create a commission that silences the religious beliefs of anyone like Christians, Muslims, Orthodox Jews, or other communities or other religions. Government agencies, I think, must be held to a higher standard. And we need to ensure that the County of San Diego is doing everything in our power to allow free speech from all points of view. One of my appointees to the commission is a transgender woman. And I'd like to read an email that she sent regarding this issue. This is her quote: "Under no circumstances will I attempt to silence a member of the overall community for expressing their deeply held beliefs. The idea of the HRC is to represent the entire San Diego County community. The idea is to reach common ground by communicating with each other and not by insisting that your beliefs are more important or righteous than anyone others and silencing those who disagree with, or you disagree with. Under the terms of hate speech, for anyone you don't agree, using the term hate speech for anything you don't agree with is worse than anything I heard from Reverend Hodges. Essentially, you're doing the same thing you're accusing Reverend Hodges of doing. Reach out, find common ground, and don't marginalize those you disagree with." That's end quote. I want to mention one of the commenters, the speakers that came up, really hit me with something that really struck a nerve. I wish I could had written it down quicker, but nurturing differences enables growth. So thank you very much for that comment. Hopefully I got that right. But one of the things that's kind of scary is that I heard that if we do this for one commission, we have to do it for all the commissions. Well, does that mean the planning commissions, the sponsor groups, all the committees that say? I know we're only talking about it at this particular.
Just the audio.
This is
the audio. The audio component was the only thing to.
Just the audio, but not the 2/3. But I don't see why not. If you're going to allow one committee to have this 2/3 capability of removing somebody, why wouldn't the other committees or commissions have that same? So to me, this is kind of going down a slippery slope, which I think is not a good place to go. We have to allow other voices, even though we don't like hearing them or we disagree vehemently with them. So I think we need to leave the removal and replacement with the Board of Supervisors or the agencies, or the organizations that actually appoint people to the different committees. Because I know there's different agencies and things like that, particularly the Human Relations Commission. There's 9 or 10 agencies that put people on there, including the Board of Supervisors. I think we should leave it up to the appointers, I guess, instead of the committee itself. So I don't support the 2/3 voting position that was brought forward for the censorship or removal. Having the code of conduct, having some of the other bylaw changes all seemed reasonable and rational. I would support those, except for the 2/3 vote to remove somebody. So appreciate the time and listening to my differing opinion. Thank you.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Thank you. So first of all, I just want to start by thanking our Human Relations Commissioners for their volunteer service to our region. These are difficult and thorny issues, and I know they've taken quite a bit of time to try to navigate these issues together. The HRC is charged with promoting respect and dignity between and among people in San Diego County. So it's fitting that a commission whose purpose is to promote positive human relations is the entity stepping forward to create a code of conduct and demonstrate for all in our region how to govern and conduct oneself in the face of disagreement. So I will be happy to support the motion as amended on the floor today. But I've heard some statements and arguments in this room and leading up to today that I must address. This vote in front of us today is not about freedom of speech. It's about the ability of the Human Relations Commission to create bylaws to allow them to do their job to promote respect and dignity for all individuals in San Diego County. This is about allowing the commission to create qualifications for membership and service aligned with the board-established mission of the commission. Would we think that someone who states out loud that Jews do not have the right to exist and are dogs and vermin is a qualified individual to serve on the Human Relations Commission? These are views a person is entitled to hold and express under the First Amendment. And expressing these views in the public square is a strongly protected free speech right. But it would disqualify them from serving on a commission, our Human Relations Commission, founded precisely to respond to attacks on Jews in our community, the killings in the Poway Synagogue in 2019. Would we believe that someone who believes blacks are inferior and should be slaves would be qualified to serve on our Human Relations Commission? Ephesians chapter 6, verses 5 through 9 said, "Slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in the sincerity of your heart, as to Christ." Would we believe that someone who believes that women should be subjugated to men would be qualified to serve on our Human Relations Commission? Timothy 2, chapter verses 11 through 15 says, "A woman must quietly receive instruction with entire submissiveness. But I do not allow a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man, but to remain quiet. For it was Adam who was first created, and then Eve. It was not Adam who was deceived, but the woman who was deceived and became a wrongdoer. But women will be preserved through childbirth if they continue in faith, love, and sanctity with moderation." No, we would not. People have every right to express these views and to express them as a private citizen. But I strongly support the Human Relations Commission's bylaw changes that clarify qualifications for membership on the HRC. Refusal to uphold the purpose of the HRC disqualifies someone from serving on this commission. Many of our commissions and advisory boards have qualifications. Our Behavioral Health Advisory Board requires that some members have experience with mental and behavioral illness in their past. Freedom of speech does not mean all speech is protected all the time. It is a well-established legal principle that free speech does not protect the right of someone to shout fire in a crowded theater. In 1919, the Supreme Court held that words, which ordinarily and in many places would be within the freedom of speech protected by the First Amendment, may become subject to prohibition when of such a nature and used in such circumstances to create a clear and present danger. You cannot tell me you like my breasts and want to ask me out on a date at work. That is sexual harassment and would be creating a hostile work environment. In 1986, the Supreme Court clarified that sexual harassment is not protected speech and employers can be liable for creating a hostile work environment when offensive speech is permitted to continue. I'm a lifelong supporter of free speech. I've said many times in my life, I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to your death the right to say it. In 1977, the ACLU went to court to defend the rights of American neo-Nazis to march through the streets of Skokie, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, home to many Holocaust survivors. The group defended the Nazis' right to demonstrate and won the case on First Amendment grounds. Do neo-Nazis have the right to demonstrate in the public square? Yes, absolutely. Do they have a free speech right to serve on the Human Relations Commission? No. The right to speak in the public square is completely different than the right to serve on a government commission created with the express purpose of protecting the dignity and worth of individuals from precisely these kinds of hateful attacks. So I want to take a moment to uplift some of the other scriptures that I hope can guide us today. Romans chapter 14, verse 13. Let us therefore no longer pass judgment on one another, but resolve instead never to put a stumbling block or a hindrance in the way of another. Galatians chapter 3, verse 28. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Romans chapter 13, verses 8 through 10. Ending with love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. So I strongly support the work that the Human Relations Commission has done to create bylaws to allow the commission to fulfill its mission, and I am proud to support the motion and support the bylaw changes brought forth today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wasserman. Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher, and I'm happy to support this. I just wanted to briefly just kind of say that I think it's really important that we are very cautious and that language matters. I keep hearing, and it happens over and over, especially here in our board meetings where people are saying, things, and I understand that, and we talk about freedom of speech and over again, and I think people hide behind freedom of speech often. But I want to just remind people that young people are listening, and they listen and they internalize and they suffer when they listen to a lot of the things that people are saying. Today people were using a lot of terms around folks who have AIDS and HIV, and for those folks who suffer, it's very hurtful for them. And so I understand that we all have our beliefs, and I want to make sure people understand. Today I'm not voting or deciding if the Bible constitutes hate speech. Absolutely not. What I think is really important, and what I'm doing today, is voting to ensure that our commissioners have a code of conduct that really understand that there really is no room for bigotry or intolerance in our communities. I do believe that we have a responsibility to promote human relations and to really be good to each other. And I understand that people believe that because we're elected officials and we're representatives, people can just come up here and say whatever they want. When we've seen a lot of different things that have happened here, but the Human Relations Commission members, they're volunteers, and so I'm really grateful for them for all the work that they've done, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to really have tough conversations that I think as a county we haven't even had ourselves, and our communities are suffering because we have seen some of the challenges that we're having between Black and Latino kids and or anti-Semitism and all of the different things that we are seeing throughout our community. And that's why this commission was created, and to see that this has created a lot more aggression and negativity. I think for me it seems like it creates more hurt. And so what I want to also encourage the commission to do is not just have training on how to do parliamentary procedures, because we can all learn how to do that and we can read a book and Google it. But I think what I would encourage is to be able to train folks on how to have the courageous conversations on when you are hearing the bigotry or when you're hearing the things that are not okay to say. How do we stand up and say, hey, wait a moment, can you please stop? Can we take a moment and pause? Because what you're saying is hurtful, what you're saying is not appropriate, and what you're saying is hurting my community at this moment. And
The second row, your comments are disrupting the conduct of the meeting. We're asking you to please stop. I apologize, Mr. Burns.
thank you, I appreciate that. And so I just think it's important for us to really lead by example, and I think the Human Relations Commission has a great opportunity to teach. There are tools on how do we teach to lead with, by being courageous and having these tough conversations that so many of us don't even know how to have. A lot of it is because we don't have the tools on how to have that conversation, because most of us don't consider ourselves to be prejudiced or racist or to have any type of homophobia or any of those, things that we want to pretend that we are, good human beings. And so if we can do that and we can provide those tools for our communities, I think that would be very helpful, and we can share them with other people and take this as a learning tool to help others as well. And so again, thank you to the members of the Human Relations Commission for the great work that they're doing, for all the time that they're spending, because I do think that in the end, this can be a learning opportunity for everyone.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We'll go back to Supervisor Anderson.
Yeah, I'll be quick about it. Supervisor Vargas, I really liked your remark. Sadly, ignorance frequently isn't hateful. It's for lack of tools. And I think you're focused on the tools because people don't realize you can't, unless you walk in the moccasins of somebody else, the shoes of somebody else, you're not necessarily going to fully understand what they're going through. And I think that tolerance and understanding is really important. And I think that's why this committee is important. And with that in mind, I'd really like to get to a 5-0 vote on this. And I know that I don't want to speak for Supervisor Desmond, but we don't want to have any possibility of not this committee, but if we follow these policies in other committees, that the code of conduct is weaponized. Would you consider, and I'm just putting this out there, that the vote to remove somebody would be forwarded to the board to finalize? And then that way, there's no chance that a small group on a clique on some future committee starts to create their own fiefdom and lose track of the focus. Because, even in the diversity of our conversation, we are the full gambit here. I mean, and I think that at the end of the day, this has got to be a win for all of us. Because, it's our chance to show the commission how it's done.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that perspective and the desire. I think a part of what we did in creating the Human Relations Commission was to empower them to be the ones to have these discussions and to trust them in terms of how they move forward with that. And I think the effort that the HRC has asked for here is for them to be empowered to have that. I think the code of conduct is vital and essential, but a code of conduct without consequences can be meaningless. And I think in that regard, what they have requested is they have the ability, as the ones who are present, as the ones who hear what happens, as the ones who go through the deliberative process, that they be the ones to be able to enforce that code of conduct as they see most appropriate. And so I think at this point, I'm prepared to support their request.
Let me just give you a different way to look at it, and then I'll silence. If they can't make a solid argument to get 5 of us to support it, then how are they going to lead 3 million people in San Diego County? And so I'm just thinking, this should be egregious. They have to get to a 2/3 vote to do it. It should be a consent item for us at that point. But I think that advocating our authority to an organization that's not duly elected, that's appointed, is an advocation of what we owe to our constituents, because they elected us to represent them. Yeah. And so that's the reason why I suggest it. And look, I didn't ask the crucial question, would this get Supervisor Desmond on board? Because my purpose is being the 5-0 vote.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Again, I want to thank the members of the Human Relations Commission. It's difficult. It's hard. They are volunteers. They serve in a volunteer capacity. And I think from my perspective, we need to respect what they've asked. They know, and they sit in the meetings, they deal with each other, they work through this. They did a lot of deliberate work around developing these bylaws. They had an overwhelming vote to ask us to recommend them. And I think that we need to respect that and empower them as a commission to move forward. So we have a motion and a second to adopt the recommended amended bylaw changes for the Human Relations Commission with Supervisor Anderson's addition to require training for commissioners on bylaws, rules of order, and code of conduct, with the request that HRC meetings be made publicly available in audio and video form, and with the addition to ask the CAO to explore the feasibility of audio recording for other boards and commissions and report back to the Board of Supervisors in the future. With that, we have a motion and a second, please.
Second part, you don't have to put it on there,
Okay.
I just want to make sure that
Perfect. Okay, so just the two. Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond. No. Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes with Supervisor Desmond voting no, all other supervisors being present and voting aye.